Hello everyone, and welcome to the review of the SkyEasy glider. Today I'm going to do a different approach from my standard reviews. I'm not going to bore you with unboxing this thing and watching it how it gets assembled, but I'm just going to jump onto the conclusions and show you the pros and cons, and even I'm going to show you how this thing flies, so stick around with me. So this model comes in a ready-to-fly version. It includes anything, and it's made theoretically for beginners. So that should be nice and should get us started very easy. It also includes a GPS, flight controller, and it actually should come pre-programmed, and all those things should work. But it's not that easy. But I'm going to explain you why. So in the box beside the airplane you are going to get a pair of goggles. They are made by JJ Pro, and they come also in running condition, so they include antennas. Sorry about that, I'm filming outdoors, so you may hear a lot of extra noise. It also comes with the flight battery, a battery for the goggles, and a tiny battery for you are going to see what more exactly, because this thing is funny. It also comes with a balance charger for 2S batteries, a power pack for this charger, another USB charger for the smaller battery here, and this is the manual, this printed paper here, which has some very important information on it, but sadly it also misses a lot of things that you need to know about this plane, and that will not make it easy to fly nor easy to set up. And of course it comes with this transmitter, which looks like a toy grade transmitter, but this thing is let me say, this thing is more advanced than you would like. This remote, actually, if you power it on and it takes a bit of time to boot up, this thing is kind of integrated into the flight controller of the airplane. So if you go into the menu, you can actually set it up like a regular flight controller, but directly from this transmitter. So I hope that you can see that. So you have reverse, dual rates, expo, mixing, flight setup, and in flight setup you have a lot of type of settings like receiver, gyro, PIDs for each type of control surface, receiver mounting position, and you can write that into the firmware. You have the GPS setup, which also has a lot of settings for heights, distance, radius, speed, and things like that. And you have another setup menu here, from which you can select language, bind, self-leveling, and you can see a lot of settings. And this thing came theoretically predefined. Well, I had some issues with it. Mine didn't work from the box, so I have no self-leveling and no gyro assistance of the plane, so this thing was just flying manually. So the plane looks assembled something like that. So let me try to zoom out. So I'm going to place it there on the grass for you to see better. So that's the plane fully assembled, and you must know that the tail needs to be glued, so it's not ready to fly out of the box. It also needs to be installed in such a way that you need to control to connect the control surfaces to the servos, and that is because they use control wires, and the control wires look like that. They are steel control wires inserted into tubes. They are moved by the servo here, and they have these servo linkage stoppers, where the original servo stoppers were completely useless because they could not fix the control wire. So I actually had to buy my own linkage stoppers to be able to assemble the plane, because none of the included ones were working, and even one of them was missing. So you also need glue because the servo horn on the tail is not glued by itself. My plane also had some problems out of the box, as the tubes that hold the control wire were loose from the wings. They were coming out, so I needed to glue them back. Also my wing here was cracked, and that is because in the box the goggles, the FPV goggles, will jump around and hit with the antennas here, the antenna connectors, into the wing on the other side. And you can see here some small holes into the wing. I have boiled the wing. I have used hot water to bend it back and glued it into one piece. So that was not a big issue, but it's definitely not ready to fly it out of the box, so it needs a bit of work, and it's not for beginners. You need to address some things to fly it. Also, the FPV camera is this thing. It doesn't have an OSD, you don't have any kind of flight information, and you use this tiny battery which you stick here and you connect to this, and as long as you have battery power you have FPV, and that's it. No information. So only information you have is on the transmitter, and this thing should have some kind of telemetry, but sadly it only shows you the signal strength, and the voltage displayed is not from the flight battery, but it's actually the voltage received by the receiver, which is stabilized at 5 volts. So as long as the plane has enough battery to fly, it will show you 5 volts, and when it doesn't have enough battery, it will just fall out of the sky, and that was it. So the telemetry is not really a telemetry, it only shows signal. Inside the airplane is actually where all the magic takes place. You will find this GPS antenna and this receiver, and that's all. Actually, the receiver has a built-in flight controller, and the plane will provide you smart flight modes such as return to home, automatic circle, automatic launch, automatic self-leveling, and things like that. None of them are documented in the manual, so it's kind of let me try to figure if this thing works or not. Until now I have only flown this in self-leveling. At least I have tried in self-leveling. It was just in a kind of an acro mode, assisted acro mode, where the plane only tries to keep its heading, and if the banking angles is crazy like that, it should just hold like that until it crashes down, and you will see that in the video. Because the flight controller and the transmitter combo is extremely complicated to be set up, I think I'm going to cover that in another video, where I'm going to show you how to start from the beginning, to reset all the settings and just configure the plane to work as it should out of the box. There are a lot of things like reversing ailerons, like calibrating the gyro and things like that, so none of them are actually mentioned in the manual, so you need to do those yourself. So I'm going to end with the talk. I have shown you mostly the bad stuff about this plane, but I also want to mention that this plane, after you figure out all the things, being very light and having that all-in-one integrated flight control receiver system, it flies just like a dream. Then I tell you, I have flown a few planes. I have flown the Easy to Fly XK, the big Raptor 2000, the Nano Talon. I'm not calling myself an expert nor a pro. I'm just calling myself novice in flying airplanes, but this thing is very easy to fly, but only after you figure out all the things and you adjust ailerons and rates and leveling and calibrate all of that. It's very easy to fly. I have flown it with an overweight camera. You can see the mount there on the wing. It was offset to one side, so the plane took care of everything. It kept it level. It was flying like it was on rails. And I'm going to include that flight also. But for now I'm going to include my first test, and you are going to see that that ended with a crash, because I was not expecting the plane to have missing self-leveling. And welcome to the flying field. I'm going to do a quick test to see if this thing flies after all the repairs I have did at it. And I have glued all the things back, checked all the wires. Hopefully this thing will fly, so I'm going to do a short test. Hopefully the flight controller will behave. I will not do anything too complicated with it. I'm just going to fly it in stabilized mode, and hopefully it will fly. I'm not going to try the GPS for now because I'm not sure if the controller works properly or not. So I'm going to start by turning on the transmitter first. So this thing takes a bit of time to boot up, and it's now up and running. And I'm going to plug in my LiPo alarm because this thing does not have any kind of OSD. So let's be safe than sorry. I'm going to plug in the flight battery now, and I'm going to let it boot up. And now, if you look closely, after it finishes the testing of the control surfaces, the stabilization is now working, and you will not be able to see this in the daytime, but the GPS antenna has a red LED underneath it and a green LED on top of it. The green LED on top of it, it's extinguished, so that should light up when this thing has GPS fix. So I'm going to let it sit there for a bit of time. Until then, I'm going to power on my FPV goggles. The flight will be a line of sight flight. It will not be an FPV flight because I want to observe the plane as better as possible, but I'm going to use my goggles to record the footage from the FPV camera. And the FPV camera uses this battery that is attached on top of the wing. So now the camera should work, and I have FPV footage here. I'm going to start recording with the DVR. Alright, so I'm now recording. Let's see, do we have a green flashing LED? It's very hard to see in this sunlight. I don't see actually any kind of activity. I'm just going to let it sit a bit more. You don't get any kind of telemetry on the transmitter. Actually, you just get voltage reading out of the receiver, which is of course 5 volts, so you don't know if you still have battery or not. While the signal here may work or may not, that will be a thing to be tested to see if the signal decreases or is just a graphic on the LCD screen. So I'm still waiting for the GPS, and now it's flashing green. Probably that means that it has the GPS position locked. Hopefully I don't need the GPS, but better to be short than, or better to be safe than sorry, or hopefully that will save me in case of some trouble. So I'm just going to take the antennas a bit out, clip the canopy, and just to be safe I'm going to add a bit of duct tape over the canopy on the rear side of it to be sure that the clip holds it in place, just like that. It's not pretty, but it may do the job. Right, so I'm still recording. Let's do a quick test for the control surfaces. Let's test the stabilization again. So better see if it's not reversed or not. And seems to be fine. Rudder also is fine. Motor power, that works. So it's a bit windy. Hopefully that won't destroy my test flight. So let's see if I can launch this thing up. So I'm using the stabilized mode and the low rates. I don't want to try anything extreme. So let's see if this thing flies or not. And seems to be flying nicely. So let's take a gentle turn. It needs a bit of power, but not something extreme. And the stabilization is not that one that I'm used on flying planes. It will actually not self-level the plane. It will just keep it in the position that you gave it last time, but that's all. It will not straighten up the plane while you are in flight. So that's pretty weird, because with no FPV and just line of sight, you just need to figure your banking angle, if it's banked or not. Whoa, and I didn't even want to try to do that kind of acrobatics. So I'm just going to try to turn this thing back, and it crashed. Alright, so let's recover it. And the plane is recovered from the crash. There is a bit of damage. There is a chipped aileron here, but that's not a major issue. And under the nose here, it got a bit deformed and a bit ragged, but I'm going to fix it with a bit of hot water. Had a bit of glue here where it's cracked, and it's almost as good as new. So what was wrong? Well, mostly my piloting. This plane did not self-level. I was expecting it to self-level, so I should have flown it FPV, but I did not. So it's very hard to tell in the distance with this thing white and full of clouds and sunshine how much is it banked or it's heading when it's at distance. So it's kind of hard to level it manually. So the self-leveling only keeps its heading, but if you take a turn, this will always take a turn, so you need to put it level back again. So self-leveling is just for making it fight against the wind or sudden moves and things like that. It will not just put the plane level back again once you release the sticks. So you need to fly this like a acrobatic plane or things like that. So stabilized or not stabilized, it doesn't make a huge difference. So I'm going to try to play with the settings of the flight controller a bit more, but I don't know if this will fix the situation or not. But at least we have a flight test. More tests will follow after this one, so be sure to follow my next uploads about this plane. Until then, bye bye.